Hello again, this is KRBrickBot, and while I'm waiting for some more Tobot V Season 2 minis, I'll be looking at the bigger Tobot V mini combiners. The first one out, Mini Maximus V. Also known as Maximus V. No name change there. Master V, Maximus V, V, and the show's called Tobot Galaxy Detectives. Makes sense. Yeah, so I threw away the inner plastic. So yeah, this is just the bare box. It's pretty silver and gray looking, with the comic style rendering of the individual cars. And I think this is actually the actual mini toy models. Yeah, these look like the renders of the actual mini toy models. I think it's pretty close fit. Side of the box. I'll say right here, the arms are spruced up than what's on actually the toy, and of course, an impossible head tilt. Comic halftones and action lines. Vehicle, robot. Side of the box, big logo, Mini Maximus V. July of 2021. So here's the Season 2 Tobot V trio in their combination vehicle modes. And here are the regular mini toys. Yes, finally for once, the combiner components are the exact same size as the individual toy components. Yep, same length, pretty much same width. The only exception is that the Maximus V Silverhawk is slightly bigger, but at first glance, you can hardly tell. Yeah, but yay, for once, this is actually consistent. You know, Tobot combiners are kind of notorious for having differently sized cars. I guess maybe that's one conscious decision because of just logistics, you know, because the biggest individual toys would probably be a little too big to be combiners. Also, I think it helps the kids maybe differentiate the different types of cars in the toy box, I guess, but that then creates all sorts of scale issues. But for once, these mini toys are all in the same size, so when combined together or just displaying the robots and vehicles side by side, you have a pretty consistent scale. I can only think of one other Tobot toy set that has a consistent scale, and that was just an early one-off versus the mainline thing. First, looking at the Kaiser Car, the red muscle car that transforms into a white muscle car. Well, the front is cleaner since it doesn't have to have the unfoldable feet. And it does have extra detail with the V01 tampograph in the grille, while this one was pretty plain, but on the flip side, it's completely unpainted. You're gonna have to do some custom work in there. Top striping's there. Yeah, but this thing has some big 4 unsightly connector pegs. The bigger Maximus V toy had a hidden connector port. I guess you could pretend these are just some really extra custom exhausts. Yep, but the sides, the same V02, V01, Tobot V. Anyway, this one says Tobot V, this one just says Tobot. Yeah, the wheels look the same, the Tobot Stone engraved wheels. If not the same, then very, very similar. Yeah, some extra combination hinges that stick out of it. Hey, but at least this one has opening door function. This one doesn't have, so there's that. Oh yeah, this one has a hard to get into transforming opening hood function, but that's not intentional. And the engine block, as usual, this one had the lion key removed and just filled up with these little strap-like things. It also doesn't have the exhaust either. But otherwise, pretty consistent. Yeah, so if you don't like the Kaiser Car having a big muscle car in the back, I suppose you could just have this makes a pretty good standalone muscle car if you don't particularly care about the individual character. Captain Jack from a blue shark style sports car to a dark red shark style sports car. Looks like to have the typical shinier plastic. Some really nice painted black side windows. Though unusually the rear view mirrors, they just extend all the way down to the body, so it doesn't have any actual hanging out rear view mirrors. So yeah, this looks a little uglier. Just to make it a little stronger, but the front vents are much more cleaned up since it doesn't have to have transforming hinges and such. Especially on the back. Yeah, just a clean, completely different engine style. Still has the shark anchor engraving there. But of course a much more cleaned up back. Side vents. Side vents that also stick out. Gas valve that this one doesn't have. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the wheels are different because these have spokes that stick outward while these ones don't. Actually painted baby blue headlights. I said before I really don't like the baby blue on mini Tobots, but since this is small and narrow, I guess I'll give that a slide. And of course the underside actually looks... And of course the underside actually looks like a car and also makes it much more lightweight. Probably the fastest. It'll probably be faster than this. Or the same, I don't know. But yeah, that's the red Captain Jack. Maybe they renamed Silverhawk the Cyclone Hawk because this isn't silver anymore. Yeah, on the back it looks pretty similar. It gets to keep its fins sticking upwards. The side turbine engines are very simplified. No intricate fans, just 3 rings that suggest the turbines. Coming to the back is also looking pretty plain, unlike the painted one here. Yeah, the front is where it gets a little obvious that this is a combiner. Like these 2 big square clips. And to accommodate that, the front is much more squared out. This is very squared with only the rounded corners. And underside kibble. Just, yeah, that's the Maximus V head just hanging out like there, hanging out there. That is very ugly. That wasn't on the big Maximus V. That thing actually folded in. Really wish they had an extra hinge, just 1 hinge and a big cavity for this thing to flip in. I'm sure the big one also had flippable little ears, but it didn't have to have that. Just enough space for this to fold in. But I guess then they wouldn't have to have space for these tiny little clips. These tiny little clips that slightly latch into the chest. That's a nice sound, but was it really worth it for the head just to be sticking out like that? Hello. I mean, yeah, this is manageable since it's a small head that actually just doesn't overshadow the nose cone, but this does. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't look good. Especially with that unpainted tiny little Windows windscreen there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the blue Cyclone Hawk is the least effective of the 3 individual components just as vehicles. Yeah, but I guess this is not the end of the world or anything because these recolored vehicles were always meant to be transitory modes. They're only in the vehicle modes for a split moment as they just transition and just magically reconfigure into the combiner components, so you're not going to be keeping this in its jet mode for that long for display. Now combination. Flip down the kibble. Flip down the door kibble. Flip down the feet thanks to these little catches on the side of the feet. Unlatch the door roof and slide it up on this very big slider. Whoa, slider joints. splits and slide down. Yeah, just move those arms up, fold those hands and lower elbows down, flip this up, turn this around on the soft ratchet hinge, slide it forward. And then Captain Jack is the leg support. Split into 3. 2 holes instead of a big square port. And clip it in here. It's looking very faithful and similar to the bigger model and toy, with some minor major points of engineering simplification. I guess with a slightly bigger budget, it can afford more plastic colors. The black, titanium dark gray, the white, blue, and red. So there really isn't much color skimping out here. There's a lot of nice painted details like on the shoulders, the leg shoulders. Some nice white, lots of white paint. So the most noticeable simplified parts there are no blue paint bits on the lower forearms, but there is on the wrist, and no hydraulic black, silver, dark gray painted out here. But yeah, but those are some very minor points and maybe some other really unnoticeable bits that were left out. But yeah, but overall, it is very painted to its likeness. Like I said before, the Leo Kaiser's connection point with Captain Jack heels are just these nubs instead of a little slider. No separate moving kneecap. And the most major thing, the butt flap, the Kibble Flap. This thing was on 2 hinges. Like one hinge to fold here and one hinge to make sure that the back of this car would fold up on the back. But it's just one hinge, so yeah, it's just looking like a big hollow underside poop catcher to the butt catcher. I suppose you could just fold this up so that it sits more flush with the other half of the car, or just pop it off its hinges and flip it around. Yeah, but I don't think that really is not meant to do that, so it doesn't sit flush either. So yeah, that's that one simplification hinge. Yeah, Captain Jack just simply splits into 3 just without the flipped out peg connection ports. And also without any jetpack details on the underside, so without those showing that you can give a bit of a lift, a thrust, this just looks like kibble for the sake of being kibble, because it has nowhere else to go. And the Blue Silverhawk's the most simplified. The bigger Maximus V had these 2 halves, like flip 180, but it's just static and it's just one solid beam piece just moving up the arms. So if you take a closer look at the front here and the back here, it looks like it has similar details, similar matching details. Faux parts on a Tobot toy? No! Articulation. The head is on a slight side to side. Looks like those screw holes really get in the way. And the head's looking a little softer and rounder, and the face is looking smaller than the original Maximus V head. Shoulders are on ball sockets and go all the way around at a little side-to-side wiggle. Be careful not to hit the kibble or else it'll fall off. Yeah, that's a really annoying thing. But with that out of the way, yeah, I guess you can get it further out. Yeah, these little CH clips don't clip in as well as the bigger one. I think the bigger one, even with its longer pegs, still tended to be popped off with its shoulders, so be mindful of the back kibble, which sits much higher than normal because these pegs are all the way up here and they couldn't move them down because the screw hinges are already here. I guess it should be there, but it's like this. He has the bicep elbow curl, no wrist articulation other than inward. Full 360 around. Legs have a very limited spread, just out that much. Yep, there goes the back kibble. Forward is also very limited. And the knees are also very limited. Pretty obtuse, especially with the kibble, or without the kibble, but without the back kibble, not much. The immovable skirt flaps and the back kibble really gets in the way of leg articulation. And I guess even if you did remove that, that would just leave this really long hanging slider rail. I really don't think the bigger Maximus V Leo Kaiser had that sliding rail. I think it was a hinge. Yeah, not that well articulated, but actually I think it does have all the basic articulation points, but they're really hampered. This scales really well with the generations, but it's not the most maximum height. So I suppose you could cheat a little and leave these sliders extended to give him more height, because the Captain Jack pegs are not locking in the slider joints. Although, of course, that leaves the feet cavities. And that doesn't really do much for articulation, but I guess if you just want them to be taller, this is what you could do at the cost of the even more disproportionate leg-to-shin ratio. In spite of the shortcomings I mentioned earlier, I would say Mini Maximus V is one of the best mini Tobot toys, primarily due to its synergy with its individual counterparts. As I said, the vehicle modes are perfectly sized with each other, and this is a perfect upgrade kit for these individual three to combine, to fictionally combine into this one big Maximus V. Mini Master V retails for a little more than Maximus, but I still think Maximus V turned out better. I think just by the design and all the budget just went to the three of them. It has a little more articulation and function, while I think the extra in Master V went to just the Kaiser Car power-ups, but not much of the articulation or good functionality. Yeah, of course, not very articulate. But yeah, but this is even worse. Like, ball socketed, really limited legs even more than this, and of the mini Tobot tri-biners, I think Maximus V just has a little bit of everything in articulation, a little bit of the head, a little bit of the arms, a little bit of the legs. Guess Deltatron has a pretty good legs, but not the best arms or head. This Athlon champion has pretty good arms, but not the best legs. And I don't have Mini Triton on me, but I do have it. But that one doesn't that one has less articulation. So yeah, so I'm liking Maximus V over these. I mean, in the articulation department, but they all look good. So whether you're interested in this mini combiner to complement these main three, or just this by itself, or maybe just these three, you can head over to the description and search out the English and or Korean names for these things. Just a few more mini reviews coming up.